Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Today is Thursday, April 7th, 2022, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. I'm the former National Chief Investigator for MUFON Canada and the former International Field Investigator Trainer for MUFON in general. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. To super chat, just click the $ next to your name in the comment box, and if you're in the observation deck, we are inside the Experiencer Hall. Go on in, put your comments and questions in the chat box. So tonight's theme is the Leak Project and media outside the Matrix. Our guest for season 4, episode 12 is Rex Bear. His motto, be the change you want to see. Rex is a lone wolf with a non-assimilated mind, a seeker of truth, knowledge, and experience. Having worked almost 100 different positions in the workplace before starting Leak Project, from construction to corporate America, he's learned a little about a lot and has had a tough time fitting into the controlled matrix of illusion. So we started Leak Project. Leak Project was created to offer awareness and information not found in mainstream news. With over 90% of the world's media controlled by only 6 enormous conglomerates, and I did not say that right, many people are looking for more accurate information. Leak Project offers a refreshing approach to the brain drain media. Check the site daily for new content as he thrives to bring you the cutting edge in news, current events, on-scene, video footage, interviews, and information. So you can find that at https, so www.leakproject.com, all one word, leakproject.com. So Rex, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. And actually, I do have tinfoil hats. Yeah. So... and tinfoilhat.co if you want a tinfoil hat that actually blocks EMF radiation. They look cool and they literally block radiation.
Let me put that in the comment. What is that?
So wild.
Tinfoilhat.co?
Man, it's a trip.
Yeah, that's freaking crazy. Tinfoilhat.co?
Tinfoil cap. Tinfoil cap.co. Check us out.
All right, it's in there.
Block 5G.
I'm gonna put that on my thing here. So, spoiler alert: I've talked to Rex many times before, so we're just gonna get into a conversation here. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to start with an icebreaker, and that icebreaker is brought to us by Stacey. So I'm just gonna play the little clip here, and I'll be right back. Okay, so CC's question of the evening to start it off is, were you aware of the Oscars? Were you aware that the Oscars were taking place prior to hearing about the Will Smith and Chris Rock dilemma?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, I was watching it live actually, so I saw it happen. So it was kind of interesting. What's interesting for me is I saw it blow up in real time on Twitter. I thought it was interesting how that happened. I go on Twitter and then it instantly had 1 million followers, 1 million things. I kind of thought that was how is that possible to have that many reactions in such a small window of time?
I feel it was either staged or some kind of sorcery was literally done to make that happen. When you look at all the connections, there's these weird things Pfizer and something with Will Smith's wife and her hair and some type of pharmaceutical drug that they're pushing. and they were a big promoter or a big sponsor of the event. I don't know if that's true or not. That could be totally debunked. But what I did find interesting was when he walks up, he slaps him, and then he's like, don't get your effing words out of your, my wife's words out of your mouth. And I was like, whoa, he's pissed. But when Chris Rock said, you're seeing the best, something about the best TV ever, or something like that. This
is the best show in America tonight. Yeah, American television or something like that. Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant. And my friend Jacob Israel, which does a great job decoding a lot of mysticism and spirituality, he actually, on the thumbnail, connected it to ego death. And I thought it was interesting because The Rock, Chris Rock gets slapped and then he turns the other cheek, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was interesting. It's kind of like Jesus, turn the other cheek, he kept his cool. He turned his cheek and he was like, but if it was staged, brilliant. Are you serious? That's brilliant. Like you said, 1 million people tweeted that and they're like, wow, dude, this is awesome. Or this is crazy. I can't believe this happened. And you immediate division, right? One person saying, I would have done that. And the other person saying, I can't believe he did that. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's amazing. That's like the world today.
So my question, I guess, follow up to that before we get into my normal question, just knowing your background in alternative news per se, what is it that happened? Do you know of any news that was taking place that we may have missed because we were paying too much attention to that?
I mean, if they don't want you to know about it, it's not going to be on the news. If they want you to know about it, it's going to be on the news, in my opinion. As long as I've been studying it, that's how I feel. If they don't tell you about something, that's what you want to worry about. If they tell you about something, man, watch out. It's like, well, okay. You've duped us 1 million times. How many times are we supposed to fall for it, in my opinion?
Yeah. No, I get you. All right. So the first question that I ask everybody on this show is, why are you the way that you are? And what I mean by that is I want you to walk me through your life and how you got to this moment right here in time, how this Rex Bear sitting in front of me got here today. Wow. Walk me through that.
Wow. That's a big question. I'll give the cliff notes. Well, okay. So let's see. Where do I start? I've shared this before, and I don't know what it was, but if I go back to my very first experience that I can remember, I was still in the crib, and it was at the first house that we lived in. And I know it was the first house that we lived in because I described it again to my parents a few years ago. I said, I described it when I said, yeah, that was our first house. We moved out of there by the time I was 2. And I was in the crib and I was looking at these things, looking at me. And I don't know what they were, but I don't think they were human. And I was a big fan of Star Wars growing up as a kid. I still am. I don't like the new Star Wars. I think they destroyed it with corporate whatever. But the original Star Wars, the first 3 were great. And man, I'm getting chills just thinking about this. I remember looking at these beings that I compared to, like, if you've seen Return of the Jedi, there's a scene in Return of the Jedi where there's these insectoid dudes that are playing instruments. Remember Jabba the Hutt, right? And there's these like and I don't know why, but that's what my mind kind of remembers. So when I was growing up, I always thought we had like life-size Star Wars figures. And I asked my parents about it when I was an adult, and they're like, what? What are you talking about? And I'm like, well, And so anyway, they didn't take me on a ship or nothing weird happened. I just remember looking at them and they were looking at me, and we were kind of like, I was like, whoa, what are you guys? And just kind of checking them out. I was like, cool. And they were looking at me. But that was my very first experience that I can remember that kind of, I don't know if that started me off on this like journey for the unexplained. But so growing up, I was really on the ET side of things, I was, and I thought that a lot of stuff that was talked about as conspiracy and ETs and aliens and implants and abductions, I thought a lot of that stuff could be legit. However, the more research I do with Leak Project, the more it seems to me that a lot of these people that claim to be abducted, I think a lot of them, something happened to them. And I know people personally, like very close, that have had lifetime experiences of being messed with by things that come in and out of their room and like through the walls and make them drink like metallic liquids and abduction kind of stuff you would think about if you think about the Greys and such. So I still believe that there's something that's going on that's not human, but I also think there's a lot of, how do I put it? It's almost like, I wonder if there's rogue Nazis that, you know, have literally kind of created these technologies and capabilities, and they've become a part of certain rogue factions or black operation groups, and they kind of muddy the waters. So people won't really know what to believe. You know, like I've interviewed some people that are famous for alien abductions, and they've kind of put that on the map in the mainstream. Like, and if you've heard this, someone say, "Oh, did you get butt probed when you got abducted?" This person was kind of the guy that put that on the map because that's what happened to him. So he's had to deal with a bunch of people harassing him. And I believe he was abducted, but I don't know if I think it was aliens because he described the way that it happened. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you got abducted, but then there's something that's butt probing you to extract fluids from you. And it sounded like something that a veterinarian would use, or like somebody for a prized horse, right? Or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, why would beings that are traveling from another star system need to use such primitive technologies to extract whatever fluids they need from you? But then I've talked to people like, I think his name's Terry Lovelace, really cool guy. And he got, if I got the name right, I hope I got the name right. He was abducted and his friend was abducted, and it messed up his friend to the point, I think his friend ended up eventually just drinking himself to death, and he made it through. And he described to me what he saw when he was abducted, and definitely something happened. But he even says there were people there during the abduction experiences. So I'm starting to question: are these people being abducted, and then they're like wearing the abductors, or the people that are abducting them, are wearing masks, and they're putting some type of hallucinogen in their, you know, in their food or their drink or their, you know, mist or something, so they trip out, and they do experiments on them and mind control tricks. And they think they got abducted by aliens. And then they tell everybody, hey, I got abducted by aliens. And so I think this whole thing is just, as far as extraterrestrials and non-human intelligence, definitely. I have no question they're there. Like I said, I've had experiences where I saw, but that experience when I saw something, if let's say it wasn't a dream, when I was just a toddler, let's say I was literally looking at beings that were non-human. It doesn't mean they're aliens. You know, they could be from here. They could be just a different type of species. And it doesn't mean they were physically there. I'm thinking, how the hell did they get them in my house? I'm living in the suburbs, and it's, you know, it's like during the day, and they're in my house looking at me, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe they're remote viewing me, or maybe it's just a vivid dream, dude. It seriously could just be a dream. But then I have friends that have had similar experiences where they've seen beings that look very similar. And we have these weird synchronicities. One of my friends calls them the ant people. Another one of my friends calls them the cockroach people. And my one friend that calls them the cockroach people, he doesn't think that any of the alien stuff that happens out here is alien. He thinks it's pretty much all government. So he's very skeptical. And so, you know, he said similar things too. Like they never really did anything to him. They just kind of observed him. And so then you research people like Terence McKenna, which, yes, he was doing enormous amounts of hallucinogenics, and you have to take everything he says with a grain of salt. But he described seeing mantis-like beings in giant ships that are cloaked around the earth. So, I mean, it's just like, what the heck is really going on here? But it certainly doesn't seem that the mainstream narrative is the truth. It doesn't seem like history that we're taught is the truth. Because research we do individually, if we look at things outside of the ego as much as we can. I mean, we all have a certain part of the ego that we have a tough time letting go of, and that's great. But if we really look at things from a hawk perspective or an eagle eye perspective, and don't just stay in one compartment, we start to understand there's so much more. than what we've been taught. Different beings and species and history and technologies that we don't have access to. And for some reason, Ryan, when I was just a kid, man, I knew all this stuff. Like literally, dude, I was 13 years old and I was talking about how there's a handful of people that control the world. And how did I know that? I don't know, because my parents are middle class. They never talked to me about stuff like this. They're told, you know, they're in the type of reality that's I don't want to say normal, but it's not like what we're in, man. You know what I mean? I drove my dad nuts when I talked to him about this kind of stuff, and I still do to this day. Bless his heart. We're just different people. And my mom will listen, and she'll have an open mind, but she really can't understand certain. Well, I shouldn't say she can't understand, but she doesn't look at things the same perspective I do, especially when it comes to politics, which is fine. And that's great. But I don't know what it was that I saw, but I do think it was fascinating. And I do feel like whatever it was that I saw kind of got me started on this journey to answer your question of where I am now. And I never really fit in. I've always been the redheaded stepchild that doesn't have red hair. And so that's cool. I like it that way. But I also, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I just have like a passion when I see somebody that's being lied to, especially my family and friends, and I see it on the television, it drives me mad. I think people.
Did you just say tell lie vision? So what you said? Yeah. I like that. Thanks.
Yeah. It makes sense. It really is. You know, they're creating a mindset. It can be the truth. You can get a lot of truth out of fiction, and you can get. It seems like there's more truth now, oftentimes in fiction than the narrative, but it's designed. What I've realized, especially lately, they've refined it. It's fascinating. If there's a war going on, they're going to keep people divided. If there is a pandemic, they're going to keep people divided. They want people to stay divided. So there could be a real situation, but oftentimes they'll show you fake footage. So a researcher is going to say, why is this footage fake? Wait a second, is the whole thing fake? So then you start to question if the whole thing is fake. And then you have to realize, no, the whole thing isn't fake, just the footage they're showing you to send you're a PI, man. I'm sure you kind of think along these lines of putting the dots together and connecting pieces and such. It's just how certain people think. I have a friend that's Navajo, and he is brilliant, and he's like the Navajo code breaker. You know what I mean? He's like, he connects all the dots. And so that's kind of what's brought me to this point. I've worked in different sales positions, from cars to lawn care to electronics to furniture to phone book covers. That was tough. I mean, I've done it all. For the last few years, last 8 or so years of my career path, working for the man or the system I was working for a Fortune 100 company, a very large leisure and travel company in sales. And I enjoyed it. And I was working with people, I did sales for about, 10 years before I got that position. I even sold like high-end boats, like Sea Rays, Boston Whalers, selling Porsches, Mercedes Benz, the BMWs, the high-end stuff for a while. And I was so passionate about cars that when I was selling cars, I was actually not the best car salesman, because I was more about the car itself than the customer. But getting to that point, I was always like the best at what I did. And then I got into this position where my friend was like, dude, you should try timeshare. And I was like, I should try timeshare? Are you serious? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And I tried it, man. And I was always kind of like in the middle. And it was so hard for me to crack that code, right? And I'm working with people that are driving the nicest cars, wearing $1,000 shoes, $3,000 suits. And I was the guy that was like riding my bike to work. And I would change at work. And like seriously, for a while there, when I was working in San Antonio downtown, I would ride my bicycle to work. I would go upstairs and take a quick, I'd clean myself up, change, go. I was selling trials where like people would get to the end of their timeshare presentation and they just wanted to go home, and I'd be like, hey, you want to just try it and I'll get you out of here? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay. It was real easy. I loved it. Right. So, but before that, it was the whole grind kind of thing where people would come in and you'd be like, hey man, you're here for a free gift. You want to buy it, and you had to sell them this $20,000 timeshare and they got to pay maintenance fees for the rest of their life. And so I didn't really like it, but I did it for a couple of years and I got okay at it. But in order to stay where I was at that position, it was like the Formula One of racing. So I had to really kind of study the mind, and I had to study psychology and eye movements and neurolinguistic programming. And then I started studying conversational hypnosis, and I started reading the books on body language, the same kind of books that like an FBI guy would read or something, depending on what, are they doing this? Are they, what are they doing? And I thought that was really cool. I really got into it. And then they started calling me Mind Freak at work. And so I took all that knowledge and all that information, and then I started to work on the road for a while, where I was like giving presentations. And then I started to blog. Well, let's go back a couple years. So it's 2011. I'm working for a Fortune 100 company. And then I really start getting into blogging. And then I start blogging about what I'm passionate about. A lot of stuff I'm blogging about 10 years ago has come into fruition and is happening right now in front of us. And I can even show you the blog post. It's wild. It's uncanny. And then I joined a think tank that was underneath DARPA, but it was like an offshoot of DARPA. It was just, it was just volunteer, because I wanted to prove that I knew what I was talking about. And there was a few thousand people a part of this think tank, and most of them had, degrees, doctors, whatever. And they had a lot more education than I did in the education system. And within 3 months, I was in first place. And so it was just like a passion of mine. They were asking me questions that I didn't even know. I was just guessing, and I was getting them right. And I was just kind of tapping into the ethereal. So that really kind of boosted my confidence. And then I'm blogging about what I'm passionate about. And then there's this website, this conspiracy website, where they used to do talk radio, where they would have these group conversations and they would interview all these amazing people like Jordan Maxwell, Anthony Peake, etc. And I used to go into this voice chat and just talk about what I was passionate about. And then Fen from Godlike Productions, that's her name, she gave me an opportunity to be a part of this like round table. And I did. And then she ended up, booking all these guests, and I was doing 2 or 3 shows a week. And then I ended up pretty much taking over the majority of the shows for a while. And then we had a fallout. And then, so I backed off, and then I just went back to the main, working a lot. And at work, I was always talking about what I do here. At lunchtime, I'd be talking about the same kind of stuff. And one time, my boss, or like the general manager he was like actually above my boss. He's like, Rex, chill out on the conspiracies, man. You're freaking people out. This was back when Fukushima happened, right? I was actually way freaked out back at the time when Fukushima happened. And I've learned a lot from that. I kind of went through my extreme around 2011 as far as on the conspiracy side, because it was almost like an endorphin rush. I was uncovering all these conspiracies and all this doom, and it's like a rush for me. And then I kind of had to back off and be like, wait a second, man. A lot of this stuff is it's taking people down the wrong path. You got to find balance. So I stepped back, found some balance, and now I do my best to be as balanced as possible and also help people reach their fullest potential without having to go through some of the same stuff that I did. So that's what I do. And to finish off, it's 2015, somewhere around then. I'm getting emotional thinking about this. My father-in-law is dying, and and my boss, I'm having a tough time at work, and my boss is like, "Dude, what's wrong with you, man? It's just death. When you die, you're dead. It's it. That's nothing. And just go back to work." And the guy that I was working for at the time, he's an asshole anyway. And he told me he's a sociopath. And I was like, whoa, why are you telling me this one time? But anyway, make a long story short, he's giving me a hard time. My father-in-law is dying. I'm having a tough time at work. And so I basically said, you know what? F you, F this. I'm done. I quit doing that. And then I just got, full time into the channel. And here I am, man. I mean, if I'm passionate about something, I'm going to uncover it. If I see something that I think people need to know about, I'm going to talk about it. And that's what brought me to this point.
Okay. Well, I like the passion. I love the passion. I can see the passion, and I know I can understand the brain and where it's going once you get down these rabbit holes and you connect all these dots and you figure all this stuff out. But once you figure it all out, you're also expressing it by blogging about it and posting about it and having it on your website, having other people come in to have these conversations, bring a whole bunch of things in. But it's alternative news and it's not on mainstream, right? So where do we want to go with that? But before we get into the deep dive of the Matrix part, is that the only experience you've ever had in your life? When you were a kid, you didn't see a UFO, you didn't have any paranormal experience, you don't have any psychic abilities or anything like that. Because I get this sense of knowing from you, this hive consciousness, because I can understand situations that you're not skilled in, but yet the information is coming to you from nowhere. I've been in situations like that before. So, you got to have more going on than just nosy, beings in the crib.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was the beginning. That was the beginning, man. My life is like a paranormal experience. I feel like I'm in the Matrix because so often these synchronicities happen. It's like on a daily basis. Today I went on a 18-mile bike ride and I look up and I'm out by Chimney Rock out here in Colorado. It's a majestic area. I look up and there's a bald eagle and it's just not even 100 feet above me, maybe 50, 75 feet above me, flies over me and then it flies back and it hangs out with me for, I don't know, I would say 2 or 3 minutes. But about 10 seconds after I notice this beautiful eagle, I look at the mile marker and it's mile marker 23. 23's followed me around forever, man. I mean, I used to sign my name 23 with my initials, RB 23. The little synchronicities like that. A few months ago, I went to I found these ruins. Like I just drove to these ruins. Like something takes me to these Native American ruins. I don't even know what. I just go there. It's in the middle of nowhere. I've never been there before. And I'm greeted by a beautiful falcon that's just perched right there for about a minute, just hanging out. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? The falcon that looks like the Falcon of Horus, man. I mean, it was amazing. I've seen the silver orbs. Tristan and I saw a silver orb 3 years ago, just a few miles from the house during the daytime at the 11 o'clock. It was at the 11 o'clock position. It was only 150 feet up off the ground max. I mean, probably less than that. And it was this metallic orb. And we're an hour away from Dulce, New Mexico. I've seen rod-shaped UFOs before. I saw a rod-shaped UFO twice within 2 weeks in Utah. And this would have been back in 2014, January. The first time I saw it was out close to Moab. It was a rod-shaped UFO. The next time I take that back. The first time I saw it was closer to Ogden off the highway. And the second time I saw it was with my coworker in Moab, and it was way out there, and it was a rod-shaped UFO. But, we both looked at each other, and, yeah, it looked like a rod-shaped UFO, but it could have been something else. I mean, I don't know. But it looked like the same thing, and I saw it 2 weeks apart. I've read people's minds before. I didn't really read it. I heard it, and it was my daughter. There's one time at dinner, I was paying the bill and I put the credit card down and she looked at me and I thought she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm paying the bill. Why? And she goes, "What?" And I go, "I'm paying the bill." And she goes, "No, wait, I didn't say that." She just thought it and I heard it. It was weird. That was pretty weird. There's been times I've seen my radar detector go off before it actually went off, but I saw it go off, but it was a different color. I had I had 2 out-of-body experiences one night before I even the first time I had an out-of-body experience, I was in my 20s. I lived in a small island in Washington State. It was late at night. I was going to sleep, popped out of my body. It scared the crap out of me, dude. I thought I was going to get possessed by a demon or something. So I put myself back in my body. I wake up and I kind of walk it off for a minute. then I go back to sleep, and then I pop out of my body again. Freaks me out, man. And then I wait, get myself back in my body. And then so after that happened, I was like shook up because I was more religious at that time. I've read the Bible cover to cover. I would pray to Jesus every night. Just thank you, Jesus, etc. And then I was under the mindset more at that time that, like, if I was to have an out of body experience, like a demon would possess me or something like that, right? Or like, well, that's going to happen. I just thought different. I was out of the box, but I was different. I didn't know about these mind powers as much. Like, I thought they were more kind of like, oh, if I can do this with my mind, am I using a demon to do it? But that's why I brought up my job when I got into my job selling timeshare at first. And I'm watching these people do stuff that's just blowing my mind. I'm like, how are they doing all this stuff? And then, and that's about the time that I had my out of body experience. And then I started to research a bunch on the occult and mysticism and symbols and sigils and mind over matter and hypnosis and conversational hypnosis and all this kind of stuff. And then I started connecting the dots. But I'll tell you what, that out of body experience that I had, or those out of body experiences I had that night, that was like the catalyst that took me to the next level. Because when that happened, I realized, I'm like, wait, I'm more than my physical body. And so I picked up a book called 90-Day Guide to Astral Projection by Robert Bruce, and I can't remember who the other guy is. And I started to study that, and then I practiced the exercises, like the projection exercises, where I would bounce myself off of the walls, like in mind. And then I would do these techniques where you could take like a ruler, and you could start with your thumb, and you put the ruler from here, and you take it all the way up to like your elbow and up here, and you do that a couple times, and then you can feel it, and then you visualize, like you then you don't do it anymore, but you sense, you make that sense with your mind, so you can feel it with your mind, and you start doing that with your body and cleansing yourself for the first week or so, and then you start projecting yourself out, and then you can actually start having these experiences, like these out of body experiences. And one time I had an out of body experience that I went so far out that I felt like I was looking at the edge of the universe. Actually, beyond that, I felt like I was like the universe was like a grapefruit, about the size of a grapefruit, but it was white, and it had this bluish hue, and I could feel this warmth. It was really cool because the way that it happened was when I had the out of body experience, I popped myself out of my body, and then I just wanted to see how far I could go. I'm just like, keep going. And I kept going. And it was almost like a movie when you see a movie and the spaceship leaves the Earth and it goes really far out into the galaxy. It was kind of like that. So yeah, that was really cool. Let me see what else. Those are some things that are coming to mind when you brought up some of these.
The majority of your experiences to me sound psychogenic. So it's very psychic ability, psychic kind of, of the mind consciousness, things like that too. And it's what's interesting about you being so I'll just say psychically in tune. You have this knowing, you have this sense, you have these synchronicities, this guidance. Even the way that we connected, is interesting on its own. But it started with some sort of visitation. So whether you've seen these beings at an early age, and in my research, as I've explained to you before, is it starts with visitation, and then these paranormal events happen, and then later on psychic abilities develop. So just like as you mentioned earlier about this possibly being human as being responsible for the experiments, I also think that there's that human element behind us having these psychic abilities in this development. So this is an evolution project, not so much extraterrestrial and paranormal. Those are just buzzwords that are used in mainstream media to perhaps distract us from thinking that we ourselves as beings are more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. So there is this sense that you're in that spectrum of you just have this knowing, So, and you know what's good, and you know what's bad, and you're following the good, and you're doing good, and you're doing better without no longer following the bad. You broke away from that. And so in your sense of everything that you've studied, I guess, what is your understanding, I guess, of of life right now? Because you talk about Matrix and you talk about simulation. Like, what's real?
I mean, that's perspective. Everything's real. When you dream, it's a real dream. It's, I think that everything has truth to it in this reality, even if it is a simulation. It's, we feel, we experience, and so do others. And I've also noticed that it's like we're human antennas, and when we get all these power-ups, it's almost like a video game. We keep getting these power-ups, and your mind is very powerful. So when you start to think about things, depending on what level you're at, they can manifest, which makes me, I've been on this path. I also read the Enochian Calls, the 72 Keys. Okay. And I think that had a big impact on me somehow. I don't know how. I mean, I can feel it. I can sense it. And I've learned to respect the mythologies and the myths and the tablets and the gods and the goddesses and the deities. Like, I have major respect for them, whether they're just ethereal creations of consciousness or more, because I've had experiences, especially some recently, that I've only shared with a few people that I mean, I don't know. I feel like I actually have been a couple of times. There's been interactions that I've had with people that are more than people. Let's just put it that way, if that makes sense.
Why though? Why do you think? Why you? Why anybody?
I know, right? Like,
why?
I know. Like, why you, man? What makes you special? I think we're all special. I think that some people are just on different paths, and I think that anybody might have an opportunity. Anybody can have the same opportunity if they want to. It's your path. Like, do you want to experience this, or do you, where are you at in your level of consciousness? Where are you at in your mind? Do you want to meet the gods? Do you want to shake hands with the gods? Do you and be friends with them, or do you want to do what you're doing and enjoy your life and kind of stay in that comfortably numb mindset? Like, I have been so in depth with research that I literally, the past week or so, I've just had to get on my bike and ride. And just pedal and pedal and pedal, because I've got to have that balance sometimes. I'll spend 12, 14 hours in the garage here doing podcasts and interviews and research and uploads. Like this thing, like, check this out. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I downloaded that, like, just my mind the other day. And then the next day, I interview Wayne Herschel, and Wayne is a stud, man. Wayne is uncovering all these star maps and stuff, like with these ancient tablets, and it's just incredible. But before I interview him, I have this idea, and I put it on the whiteboard, and then this right here is an asterisk, and then these are the 4 stones that I want to put up in the Colorado area. I want to put up the Colorado light stones, or the life stones, because everybody's heard of the Georgia Guidestones. And hey, I'm not saying, like, a lot of people think the Georgia Guidestones, because the first thing it says is 500 million people in perpetual balance with, with nature. A lot of people think that means they want the other 7.5 billion people taken out. And I don't know if I mean, maybe they do, but I don't think they're saying that that's what's going to happen. I think that's there for if there's a major cataclysm that takes place, then when people come out of the caves, they can be like, look, that's how we need to live. That's it. I'm being kind of sarcastic, but I'm also being kind of real here. But anyway, so I'm like, let's come up with the Colorado life stones, the Colorado light stones. And I thought to myself, let's put them in the 4 corners area. And let's put them in the 4 corners area. And then let's build like this asterisk around the light stones, where you could build an entire civilization around the light stones. And then you can see the asterisk right there, right? Right here. There's the asterisk. And then here's the stones.
I see it, but I see what you're describing, but I don't. Like, I see something else when I look at that.
Well, when I want to hear what you have to say in a second, but I interviewed Wayne Herschel the next day or a couple days later, and he was showing me maps of Atlantis. And these maps of Atlantis, And the way that Atlantis was built around a very similar formula.
Okay.
Like an ancient swastika before it was reversed by the Germans, connected to Orion.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And then for the stones, I put, be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
What is the change you want to see? How are you going to make your dream come true? Be grateful, give thanks every day, help others, give others the benefit of the doubt. In conversation and communication, put yourself in their perspective. You're the microcosm of the universe. Make yourself great. Every moment influences every other moment. Remember this when acting. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. All life is precious. Sometimes it just forgets. Keep your dreams alive and your passion will thrive.
That's all positive. That's great.
What did you see? What do you see in that?
Well, see, I see an asterisk and I see your 4 runes, but I mean, I'm just going to bring it up. Remember the look at the map. Remember the map?
Yeah, dude.
Okay, so the asterisks in the middle with these 4 stones. I'm seeing Anu. I'm seeing that symbol.
Wow, Anu.
Do you see it now when you go look?
Oh yeah.
Look at your thing with your stones. So there's the similar placement, and all that other stuff. So there's that connection. There's source, right?
Yeah.
So
man.
this is my information download. But I mean, like, and it comes. I wish it was like I had words like yours. Like, I mean, that actually comes with an instruction manual. But you can at least piece together what it is that you got going on. But you've been drawn to, like, actually, let's talk about that for a second. So this is this map alone for this, because I noticed that you have some of your viewers here too. And thank you so much for joining us. I'll get to the comments at the end of the show. But this symbol here is what Rex was drawn to, who he actually invited me onto his show, and we talked about it. So Rex, for our audience and everything like that, why don't you explain why you were drawn to this and how you're connected to this as well?
Like the symbol?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So this symbol, first you've got Anu, and Anu is the father of the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki are the major gods or the major deities of the ancient Sumerian pantheon. And if you were to take the majority of religion today, the majority of religion today has actually branched off from those Sumerian deities. And I've got a very strong connection with these ancient deities, with Anu, with Enki, with Enlil, with Inanna, with Aries, which is interesting. I've got a strong connection with Mars, and I don't know why, but I've got a real strong connection with Mars. I was talking about Mars 20 something years ago and about Sidonia and the face on Mars before people, I mean, when that stuff was just out on like coast to coast, and before it was even out on coast to coast. I think in a past life, I might have, in a past life, I think Mars, for whatever reason, this strong connection. But what do you think? Here's what else is interesting is if you read about the fallen angels, especially in like the book of Enoch, right? I think they're actually talking about people that came from Mars, and that's how they depicted them. Like religiously, you could be like, they're fallen angels, they're evil. They gave people technology. Like Prometheus was it Prometheus or Poseidon that gave man fire?
Prometheus.
Prometheus? Okay.
Yeah.
Gives them fire. And then, what are the consequences? Well, now we're warm. Yeah. Heck yeah, we're warmer. But what happens in 500 years? We got nuclear bombs, So it's like that whole Enlil Enki battle. Enki's like, let's raise consciousness. Let's give people as much as we can. Let's just see what they're going to do. And Enlil's like, wait a second. How much do we want to, how far do we want to allow them to evolve? Do we want to give them so much consciousness at a time when they haven't evolved to a point? What is the outcome going to be? It's kind of like artificial intelligence and robotics right now. We're designing quantum computers that are literally tapping into dimensions that we don't fully understand. Literally, And they're like, boop, here's the answer. Well, cool, man. But what does it mean? I mean, well, when you can calculate it a 0 and a 1 and in the middle at the same time, now a computer that can calculate quadrillions of floating points per second is obsolete because it's at multiple positions at once. That to me is very similar to looking glass technology, probably, if you think about it. Because aren't you not tapping into the future if you're seeing at multiple places at once?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, the future and that, like, I mean, time travel is like tough for me, has always been tough for me. Like just to accept as possible, just because it would mean that what we're doing is recorded already. So like, so for the best analogy I've always used is like, if we want to document something like this video, this is live in this moment. And then in the future, if we want to see it, right, we would just go back and watch it and record like the recording that was already done and replay it and then learn from it and then go back and then change, what you're doing in the future. So I don't really feel strongly that that we could go to the future. I feel like we could stop time or slow it down so we don't move as fast or as quickly. That concept makes sense to me. But in order to go back in time and to change something, so the butterfly effect, that part would make sense logically. If you alter something in the past, everything in forward will change. But in order to go back in time, there would have to be a system that recorded this somehow, so the data exists, so you could now go back in time. And so that's what I'm saying. So time travel has always been difficult for me to comprehend, because I'm like, that would mean that we're in some sort of computer system to allow that data to be stored and go back. So does that mean that's the reality? And of course, I'm not a scientist, and there's a lot of quantum mechanics and things behind it that can explain it. But I mean, for me, to make it simple, it's terrifying to think that this is on, a recording, which means there's destiny and there's projection and all these other things. So I wouldn't say I'm afraid of it. It just makes me uncomfortable, because I don't like it's unsettling, the thought. That makes sense.
Yeah. And do you remember the books growing up as a kid when you get to the end of the chapter and you had multiple choice?
Yeah.
Right. So maybe it's like that. Maybe the book that's presented, each chapter, instead of it being completely written out and completely predestined, then we would have the choice. Well, you can take the door to the right, you can take the door to the left, or you can go right through the central point. And the DNA itself is fascinating, because they're taking DNA and they're turning it into storage right now. They can put far more storage in DNA than a hard drive. Right. But somebody brought up to my attention, and this is like, they can put tons of data. They could take all the data that's ever been recorded digitally. You could take a garage with a DNA hard drive, and you could put it all in that hard drive. That's how much, and that's right now. They keep increasing the level of storage that they can put in just 1 gram of DNA. But somebody brought to my attention a while ago, they said, well, Rex, DNA, that's God's hard drive. And I'm like, You're right. It is. Think about that. Like, if you could take your DNA, there's probably technologies where they could take your DNA and relive every experience that you've ever had, and actually throw it into the senses.
Yeah. So yeah, like, I mean, it's all in the context in which you're going back in time, and then you can predict, and then you can go into the future, and then, like, it's just well, you go back to Enlil or Enki, the scientist, studying, mixed genes and all that other stuff for mankind. Like there's the evidence that it's there, and that it's possible.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned DNA and strands and stuff too, because I've always thought Utnam Pishnam, so the Sumerian Noah, right? So when you talk, so you got the Enkis, and for those of you who are following the Christian Catholic story, in Sumerian, the roles are reversed, which means Satan is good, okay, and that's which is the Lord on the earth. So in the Sumerian Noah story, it was actually Satan in terms of lack of a better term, that encouraged Noah to save the gods from dying from the flood. So so in terms of that scenario, to make sense of the ark, okay. So as a PI, I can't always prove fact, but I have to make it logical in order to predict or to know where to look. So with the ark scenario, I found that the most sense made is not to physically have two of every animal in a boat in water. It would be have two of every type DNA, perhaps in a vessel that perhaps was vertical instead of horizontal, and it, in a rocket per se, and it went up into space, into the astral waters. So the different perspective and concepts. So to me, even going back then and even looking forward to the future of how we're able to our current technologies, it's possible with those technologies, as you just explained, storing data on DNA, and to put it on a rocket ship, to put it up into space and then wait and then bring it all down to reset again. All those things exist now. But then if you go back to Sumerian times, they had technology that we have now. And then everything just disappeared for a short period of time. And then all of a sudden we're starting to get back to that part. So if they knew that then, and we're now getting there now, is history repeating itself, or was there a reset and now we're about to reset again? Like you get what I'm saying? Like a different, so which also is evidence of again recorded data and time and multiple timelines and things like that too. Can't prove it, but it's just that cyclical pattern.
This is what they did different. Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, this is what they did different. Before the Younger Dryas event, there's enough evidence to suggest that they were highly advanced, especially archaeologically. Megaliths, structures, and 100-ton, 1,000-ton blocks that were cut with precision. And people were like, well, where are the tools? Well, first of all, if any tools were discovered, then they were usurped up. They're national security, they're gone. And you're not going to find them. And archaeological digs, man, if you're working for the CIA, imagine how many people work for an alphabet agency or a clandestine group that are a part of an archaeological group, right? They're like, oh, I'm just an archaeologist. Meanwhile, they speak 14 languages. They're, fourth degree black belt, and they find something in a dig. What do? They shut it off. They close it off. They take it, it's gone. There's tons of evidence around the world that there were laser cutters out there. They were cutting through freaking granite and block. I mean, they weren't just using their mind. They weren't just, they weren't just like, okay, get the slaves, start cutting. Yes. Oh, I mean, come on. Those things were advanced. So they were using the electrical current that they were picking up was not from like what we're doing now. This is what changed. Whatever cataclysm took place, the people that remained in control, they kept these technologies for themselves so that we have to continue to pay for energy, whether it's gas or propane or electric or a battery or whatever. But there was a global civilization and they were linked up with the ley lines, and somehow they were tapping into the Earth's magnetic fields and the Earth's energy fields. And it was abundant energy around the world. That's my theory.
And that coincides with, Nikola Tesla and the free energy. And then we got Tartarian movements and the lost, those hidden continents with free energy and stuff like that as well. Some say that Russia is still Tartarian, which is the old world fighting against the new world right now and things like that. There's a lot. It's like I'm starting to see the old in the new, meaning new faces, but the old stuff. Does that make sense? So like I'm seeing more evidence of the Sumerian technology and the possible suggestions that we were worried that we thought they could never have. And now that we have those today, it's no longer impossible, at least for me, to think that they couldn't have it then.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Right.
So like this whole story and then nothing, and then the pandemic, which blew everything up, and now we're starting to rebuild again in a different way. It's almost like a cataclysm in a sense, because everything was destroyed, and so what is your, so I'm going to kind of segue into that with everything that's kind of changing is during all of this, the Pentagon, has announced, that allegedly that UFOs exist. And you with me, your idea and concept with alternative news, and what we were talking about before with the media not always telling the truth or putting something out there that they want us to hear. What is your take on that? Because there's a lot of ways we can go.
You mean like with the ET disclosure, the drip disclosure of ET?
Yeah. The whole movement.
So when they think about this, when they started pushing the Space Force, that's when they started pushing the UFOs, the UAPs, the unidentified objects flying around Navy carrier ships, etc. So I thought to myself, okay, I think the agenda here is they're trying to get people to go back up the Space Force and, funding, mindset. They're just sculpting the minds of people. And these ships, these UFOs, these UAPs, these orbs, whatever they are, these Tic Tacs, a lot of this stuff has been going on for thousands of years. They've been here for thousands of years. This is nothing new. I've heard about the treaties, and I actually know somebody. So everybody knows somebody that knows somebody. So I get it. But I know somebody that knows somebody, and this person is very high up in the echelon. And there are these treaties that were supposedly made now with ETs. Now the question is, and I think this is a great question: why in the F does a alien species that can travel here from another star system, why would it need to make a treaty with the military? You would think it could pretty much do whatever it wants, right? I mean, in all reality, wouldn't you think that it would have the technology to, why would it need to make a treaty with the military? It could own the military. So there's
got to be a purpose.
Yeah. So these treaties were supposedly made, and some of these beings wanted to be known, and others wanted to trade technologies to get rid of nuclear weapons. And then there were others that said, look, we'll trade you technologies. You don't even need to give up your nukes. We just want to do some experiments on the people. And so if this is true, then that means there's a multitude of factions. But you can go back to Mars, and you can look at Sidonia. You can look at the mythologies that talks about these cataclysms that took place in the heavens that I think is connected to the planetary bodies. And if you read the stories about the fallen angels, if you look at the technologies, I think and if you look at Cairo in Egypt which is Cairo, the native tongue means camp of Mars, which tells me they came here from Mars. There was a major cataclysm, and they came here. And I also think they were working with the Nazis in World War II, certain factions. Go ahead. Were you going to say
I was just thinking, just trying to remember in Sumerian mythology, wasn't Eridu, Camp Eridu, like a control center to communicate with Mars? Like, isn't that what I'm understanding? Like, it was home base
stuff, though. Is that what Sitchin? Because I haven't read much of Sitchin. I've read about 100 tablets from the Oxford University and a bunch of the older stuff that was translated in the late 1800s and early 1900s. But I've read very little of Zecharia Sitchin. So, and I've done that purposely because of the campaign that seems to be pushed. Oh, Zecharia Sitchin, he's a reptilian shapeshifter. He goes to these Rothschild parties, and he's a 99th 420th degree bong ripping Mason. I mean, you've heard all that stuff, right? It's like come on, man. Yeah, he was shapeshifted into a reptile, and then he went to Freemason ceremonies. He's like, "What's up, bro?" I mean, come on, come on. It's ridiculous. I don't know. Anyway, I just think it's silly. I think that he was on a lot of things right. The little that I did read, I read like half of the 12th Planet, and I thought it was cool, but I disagreed with him on the May. I think he talks about the May. Yep. You know what I think that is?
What?
I think that's you. I think that's me. I think that's our DNA. Think about it. The me, me. I mean, hello, me, DNA, and then the handbag. That handbag, I think, is the DNA.
Okay, that would make sense. Carrying it, yeah, carrying the life around.
Like we're talking cosmic DNA, like the DNA of the gods, right? Like the supreme royal DNA that's connected to the tree of life, that's connected to the Holy of Holies. I don't know. Maybe. That's what I think.
I don't know. But the thing that's interesting too about the lore too is like they drew what they saw, or did they draw what they saw, or were they drawing what they were trying to interpret? Meaning, did they actually have wings, or did they have the ability to fly? So in order to explain that, because they couldn't understand how, they attached wings, to the entities. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're a Freemason, and you know all about symbology, right? I mean, like you can take one symbol and you can come up with 1 million translations and 1 million different codes, and you can meditate on that. So the reason I'm bringing that up is I think that I want to ask you that question. Like, why do you think that they're putting that in? I think it's code. I think it's code, but that doesn't mean that they didn't. You know what I mean?
If it's code, then there was this knowing of that they needed to inscribe it so that way others would find it. So there would have to be a lexicon. There would have to be something to translate it so we would understand what the code means, which we're kind of figuring out as well. But then we still need some confirmation. So, do we need to see a winged beast in order to confirm that is what the Sumerians were drawing, or something hovering, and things like that. So, I mean, for me, Sumerian's the source because it's the first. Right, that's been documented.
That we know about.
Yeah.
But some scholars say that the Vedas, like the stuff in India, is old. So I don't know.
Zoroastrianism and things like that. Yeah,
isn't Zoroastrianism like Persian?
Yeah, I guess same area though. Cradle of civilization is kind of like all on the whole midst of things, because it's hard. Go ahead.
No. Speaking of the cradle of civilization, Turkey is fascinating. Göbekli Tepe's there. But you know what else is out there? That 40,000 person bunker that's built underground. So it's like that. They knew somehow, they had these observatories and they knew that something was coming. And that's why I think they built that underground bunker that holds tens of thousands of people with lots of storage.
So many things going on that, like, on top of all the things that we see on TV, like this is the stuff that we need to be talking about. So we're going to pause, and when we come back, I want to bring up your website. I want to go through it, and then we can kind of have some conversation about some of the things that you're doing.
Cool.
Does that make sense? All right. So we'll pause right here, but we will continue after a message from our sponsors. If you're listening to this audio version, head over to youtube.com/Experience Your Support Association. You'll see the video that goes with the audio. Remember, you are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experience Your Support Association, and we will be right back.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
Welcome to the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus, just like you would in real life. First, you install the application and design your very own unique avatar. Then you're free to explore the various areas of the campus at any time from anywhere. There's so many areas and activities to choose from on the platform. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, a large expo hall, a movie theater, a nightclub, an art gallery, and even a beach. Come attend a conference, or take a class, or hear a lecture. Meet new friends and interact directly with presenters. It's all right here on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Where in the world will you go?
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today by going to tesacan.org/EA. That's TESACAN.org/EA. Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Did you know that we have a private community chat for our members on our YouTube channel? If you become a member, you will get bonus content like exclusive videos, including bloopers, behind the scenes, and members-only Q&A. Also, if you've ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFO, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to tesacan.org/reporting system. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. And I am still here with Rex Bear. How you doing, champ?
Great. Coffee and C60. It's amazing.
Nice. I'm going to bring up share screen here, and I want to go through your website. And but before I go through your website, I put in the tinfoil cap. So like this
cool,
is
right?
This is a pretty bombing site. Like, so did you make all these? Like, what's the story behind all this?
Well, okay. So I don't make them, but I am the the man behind the idea, and the guy that makes them lives in the UK. His name's Julian. He's got a shop out there. He's super awesome. And the way that this started was a few years ago. I was like, okay, let's make a tinfoil hat. Let's make a tinfoil hat. And so Julian's like, okay. And then he made a tinfoil hat. And then I was like, you know what? We need to make a tinfoil hat that'll literally block EMF radiation, because a lot of people are scared of 5G and 4G and all the other Gs. So let's make them. And he's like, that's a great idea. So we make hats that have these liners that go inside of them that you can take out, and they literally block EMF radiation. We've tested them. We've got the equipment. You can put it over a router. You can wrap it around your phone, but we've got these phone wallets. You can put your phone in the wallet, and if you close it, you're not going to get a phone call because it has no signal coming in or out. You can use it as a wallet too. We got like passport, wallet, RFID EMF blockers as well that'll protect it. And we've got shirts and pants and leggings. We've got what's called ball blockers, because they're boxers that block EMF radiations. But what's interesting is, you got to protect. But it's like people were so freaked out about 5G. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I think some people still are.
Yeah, right. Well, I started doing the research. That's another conspiracy. I'm like, look, man, I need to know what's going on, because people are like, oh, everybody's going to die. It's going to kill everybody. And I looked into it, and I'm not a fan of 5G, because actually whenever I get 5G on my phone, the reception's even worse. It sucks, right? The Julian came up with a bunch of those ideas, but some of them are funny.
These are awesome. These are actually pretty awesome.
But so the 5G is actually a lot less damaging to the body than some of the other ones, like 4G and 3G, and those frequencies and other frequencies can be a lot more detrimental than the 5G. I think the 5G itself is more for like a target, pinpoint accuracy to be able to track. But it won't even penetrate the skin. Like it's a millimeter signal, and it's really weak. So I'm more concerned. Like, I don't want to be anywhere close to a cell tower. I would not want to work. I actually had a job one time. That's another one of the jobs I had for a very short time, where I was selling motorhomes. But the motorhomes that we were selling, they were like, yeah, we just got it from an auction. And then people would come and look at it, and I couldn't get it to start. And I'm like, dude, I can't do this. This sucks. And they were like, we're going to build a cell tower right next to this. I'm like, I'm going to quit. I'm not going to work next to a cell tower. So I don't believe in it, but I started to study that 5G thing, and 5G sucks. It's weak. It's like, like, dude, 5G's crowd control, Rex. No, it's not. There's different technologies like LRAD and stuff like that they use. That's not 5G. But these clothes will protect 5G, 4G, 3G, radio frequencies, electromagnetic frequencies, all sorts of different nasty smog. That's electromagnetic smog. These will block, and they're cool. They look cool. I'm actually wearing a
that's what I was looking at, that beret, right? Is that what you're working at? Yeah, that's what you're wearing right now. This guy right here.
Yeah. I'll send you one. Send me your address, and or a PO box, and I will send you a free tinfoil hat. You pick which one you want. I'll put the EMF liner in there. We'll hook you up. You just got to wear it in the podcast.
I'm gonna have to. Thanks, man. I'll definitely do that. You put a Canadian flag on it, because that's my thing. I got to make sure people know I'm Canadian.
Yeah,
it's a tough world here. What's that?
I said you can put a Canadian flag on it. I don't know. I can ask Julian too, but he makes them in the UK. So I'll see man,
here we go. We got a shop too. Maybe we can start a Canadian line. Look at that. We'll just there's a business deal right there. Cool, man. No, I like those. Those are awesome.
Thanks.
So okay. So with your website, let's go through it, and let's kind of like show everybody what you got going on, and maybe that'll kind of generate some topics, because I feel like there's a lot of things we could talk about, but we want to get you're in the know, right? So this is where people are going to go, right? Lake Project.
I would hope so. We're actually over 4,000 podcasts now, so I need to get that updated. 4,000 plus podcasts, guys, gals.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Featured guests, right on.
Paul Hellier, man, rest in power, Paul. That guy's a stud. He was he was the highest level official that I ever interviewed that has been a part of the ET disclosure.
I have some emails from him and the Canadian Space Agency that I'll be putting on our new website when it's done.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I'm not quite sure how many people have seen it. I met Paul Hellyer at the Alien Cosmic Expo here in Canada as well.
Nice.
And go from there. Oh, we got a question from a member.
Yeah.
So Serena asks, have you looked into secret space programs? So that's for you, Rex.
Okay. Yes. A lot. I've been looking into this stuff for 10 years. Right. And once again, so much of the secret space program stuff is BS. Is there secret space programs? Yes, there absolutely is. But I'll tell you what, if somebody's saying that how do I put this? Just use logical sense. If somebody says they were a part of 1,000 alien abductions in a year, that's a lot of freaking alien bodies. That's all I'm saying, right? If somebody says that they went to another planet and then they came back and their age was, they were put back in a body that was younger, and now they're doing conferences talking about it. I mean, like, are you going to question that? Because I question that. Like, I had a guy on once, and I'm not going to say names, but I'm like, hey, man, what did you do on Mars for 20 years? Well, we'd walk around outside sometimes. And I'm like, well, right on, man. What would you see? Spiders. Oh, okay. I mean, if I was on Mars for 20 years and I was doing conferences about it, you better believe I'd be talking about what I was seeing out there, man. I'd be like, yeah, there's a freaking 5-star pyramid. It was huge. And we saw come on, man. Come up with something a little bit better than spiders, dude. All I'm saying.
Yeah, like I've interviewed some people with the secret space program, and I'll follow the same respect that you have and not name them. And I do have a series of experiencers that I've investigated for that explain things that would fit in that category of a secret space program. However, there's not enough facts to determine if this government program is on this planet, let alone another. It's just confirming that the event had happened. So I don't necessarily have a lot of data to prove that it's possible, mainly because I'm not an astronaut and I can't go to Mars, and none of us can to fact check and validate it. But it's along the same lines as how do you validate astral travel? How do you validate out-of-body experience? So there's a lot of studies that go in that validate for those people within themselves, but that's still local.
You could validate that stuff, though. No, if you have an out-of-body experience and there's something in the other room, you're going to see what's in the other room.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying because it's familiar. You can do a lot of familiar things, and it's just. But to make a claim that you've been somewhere that 90%, I would say 99% of the population can't get to. It's a hard sell. Whether it doesn't mean it's not true. It's just you gotta follow the body language of the person telling the story. So I'm not saying that the secret space program, in my opinion, there isn't one, and I'm not saying that the experiencers that have reported aren't having that type of experience. I'm just suggesting, from my experience, that is a very easy tale to sell that a lot of people resonate with that can't be fact checked. So it's difficult.
Yeah. And there's people that really believe they were a part of a program where they went, like, then there's people that really believe it. And
as it physically, and then there's mentally, because if you get the consciousness aspect, the psychogenic part, maybe they astral travel to a being that is already on the planet, and then they're there, and then like this simulation avatar stuff, like there's technologies that could make it possible theoretically.
Or would it make more sense that maybe they were like MK Ultra, kind of, like literally they were
maybe
in the mind.
Maybe they're in the Grand Canyon. Maybe they're in Upper Canada. Upper Canada looks like Mars. There's a lot of things, right?
Yeah, Devon Island. That's a perfect example. Devon Island. That's where they do some of the Mars rover.
That's where they test for it. Exactly.
And I wouldn't be surprised if what they're showing us is mainly from there.
Well,
I'm not
what's your
saying
take?
we're not.
What's your take on the moon landing?
Okay, well,
In comparison to that. Oh, okay. Sorry. Wait. We'll come back to that because remember, we just always let the members ask their questions. 100% Sacred Space Program. Yes, most people saying they're part of one. Not so much for those who have such experiences. Potential for implanted memories. So, for those who have such experiences, is there potential for implanted memories?
well, so yes, if you've had a genuine experience where you've been to another planet or you've been abducted by non-human beings, then there's going to be the powers that be are going to know that, and they're probably going to do whatever they can to suppress that memory, whether it's, like additional hypnosis, or they put you into some kind of like way deep regression. I don't know, but I would, and I can't prove this, but I can say that there's enough disinformation out there that if someone has a genuine experience, that, and if the powers that be know about it, they're going to do everything they can to give them false memories or whatever, or else if they have to, they'll just, well, I mean, think about it. If somebody's saying they get abducted by aliens, and you don't have the proof, how many people have said they've been abducted by aliens now? And how many, so it's not, I don't even really think it's a big deal to them. But if you have like actual physical evidence, they're not going to want that out.
Yeah. So to speak on that, as a PI in my career so far in this game, I've fact checked and sourced out the major players, and a lot of them just have stories to make it so they fit in. But the experiencers that I work with in private that don't come forward and share, which I speak on their behalf for majority of it, they don't want to have that type of attention. And when I'm working with some people are comfortable, and there is general experiences out there where they're Lisa is in our crowd too. She's very comfortable with her experience. She wrote a book, and she does a whole bunch of things like that. She is a good example when I compare to, say, radio hosts or things like that just kind of want to stick to that buzz or that woo, in a sense, in order to fit in. So the body language and the explanations from that, the bullshit meter is pretty high. And I get a really good reading from the people that want to be anonymous. And when I work with them on an individual basis, that connection, that feeling is so different that I don't see it in mainstream. I don't see it in the people that are reporting on ufology in mainstream media. So does that mean it's not true? Or have they been telling the story for so long that they're just used to it? It's what makes the money. It's what sells the next book. What are they doing it for? It's really, they become these icons, these messiahs, if you will, because there are experiencers that relate to that because they don't have answers. Right. And the problem that I have with that is that can we trust the host who says they have an experience to be authentic? Because the people that follow them, so the sheeple, right, they're following blindly because they think that Me Too syndrome is kind of happening, but at the same time, is that healthy?
Right.
So to give it I mean,
what you're saying is meaning somebody's saying that that has a show is let's say they claim that they have been abducted by aliens, and they tell a story, and then other people resonate with that story, so they start creating a cult following based upon that.
And it could very well be true, and there's no evidence to say it doesn't exist, and there's nothing wrong with that because everyone's just trying to figure out what it is. Right. But then there's that like you said, kind of blind following, if you will, and that's going to happen with true stories as well. It's just how does the experiencer know in that moment whether or not they're telling the truth, because it happened to them and they're just trying to connect. So what I'm trying to say without naming names, but I might have to name someone here as an example.
Mr.
But, I mean, Mr. Lou
Why?
Elizondo, I feel like he was placed. I do not feel a sense of whelming or a positivity coming from this gentleman. But I do see a lot of people that worship and follow and are happy about the idea in which he speaks of. However,
isn't he retired CIA?
Allegedly.
Well, I mean, if he is, then that would that makes me question even more, right? Well, dude, CIA must be telling us the truth, Ryan. Come on, man. They never lie.
So he's on mainstream media. He's on media. We're supposed to protect, believe media, but we don't believe media. He's on here. They're talking about something serious that these experiencers are affected by that need to have answers. So the problem I'm having is how much of this can be trusted when it's been a mess for so long. So, like, I'm not so to give him the benefit of the doubt, it could be like the boy who cried wolf in terms of media, right? So, what if he's telling the truth? What if it is real? And it's hard. And
yeah, it is
so
hard.
to come back to that with the secret space program, there are followers, there are other people that do go around and do shows and talk about their versions and their experiences within the secret space program, and they do have followers as well. But there are people that call bullshit on them, but then there's experiencers that don't call bullshit on them because they want to believe them because it happened to them, and they want to believe that it's true. And I'm just, you understand how dangerous that is?
Right. Or they had a weird experience growing up or sometime in their life. So they're looking for something to connect it to. Right. And that like you said, that resonates with them. So they take that and then they go, oh, that must have been what happened. That's right. I must have been abducted.
And that's how it starts. And then now if you look at everybody today, what are they doing with it? Nothing has changed. The story hasn't changed except money opportunities to write books, opportunities to do shows, opportunities to be on TV. Well, so that influence is taken and used to manipulate those types of audience into watching and having that hope in that scenario, because that's how the media works, because it sells. But is it truthful?
They've played that card so much, though, dude. People are at the point now, and they're even saying the same thing, that they're tired of the same, it's got to be aliens, it's got to be aliens, it's got to be aliens agenda, right? So, no, I think that is starting to branch out. And what's interesting is, for the past 5 years, I've been talking about this, at least, that I think a lot of this stuff, but I mean, I've gotten even more so the past couple about how a lot of the stuff that we used to be told was aliens. Like, think about this, Ryan. You're walking around 5,000 years ago, right? And you're a caveman and you're like, oh, fire. And then there's these like aliens with jetpacks and they're like, that's what they want us to believe. I'm like, wait, no, dude. No, it was slaves. It was either slaves or it was aliens. I mean, come on. So where am I going with this? I don't know. I started getting excited talking about the lasers and jetpacks.
It's all good.
They're telling us these crazy narratives about everything's aliens. Oh, this is where this is where we're going with this. So the narrative is starting to, people are questioning, wait, maybe it's not aliens. Maybe it was us in the past. Maybe they're not all aliens that are flying in these craft. Maybe they are drones that are exotic, technologies that are military developed. Maybe they're from archaeological digs, from 80,000-year-old technologies, because 80,000 years ago, we were so far advanced, we still can't duplicate some of the stuff they're doing. Maybe they did have telescopes, and that's why they could see the details of planets. I mean, if they could build a megalith with 1,000-ton blocks, they probably have effing telescopes. I'm just saying, if they can map out the stars, the planets, and constellations, and all the details, well, it was so close to Earth that they could just, they're on their canvas and they're like, come on, man. Let's use some common sense here. They had pardon my language, they had telescopes, folks. They had telescopes. But anyway, it was cavemen and aliens, Ryan. That's it.
I mean, it makes sense, like, I mean, we were doing what we were doing and we had help, and then here we are, and in the absence of God, we're figuring it out, it would be nice to get some answers. It'd be nice to get some validation and confirmation, but it would also scare a lot of people too. So there are victims of trauma. There are victims, of having negative experience that they don't want this to be true. And it also but then also in my experience with hypnosis, I've learned that using hypnosis as a tool, I've sometimes learned that the alien and paranormal phenomenon was used to hide past traumas of real things, of real people. Instead of being, molested by an alien, the truth is they were molested by, a family member at a young age, which they suppressed, and then they attached these things. There are a lot of serious things, but it still links back to humans, still links back to government, still links back to they know something. So when we go back to like that 5,000 years ago, whenever that plan was made, and if you follow the Sumerian, they created us as slaves to mine the gold so they can get back to their planet or whatever that was about.
Are you buying that?
Well, I mean,
think about it. They come here from another planet and they're like, "Oh, let's genetically modify those dudes so they can make gold, so they can mine gold." Why wouldn't they just use androids, right? Like they'd be like, "Make mining's tough," and plus, people are so like, think about how difficult it is if you're self-employed and you're looking for good help that you can trust. Help that you can trust. Like it can be tough to find help you can trust unless you're your friends or something like that, but it's tough. And so people are not that easy to control. So I don't think unless they were from here, like what if they're Vikings?
Well, yeah, what makes sense, right? So what makes sense is that we were already here and then we were already doing that. And then we just stopped doing that. And there was a need to document it. And then all of a sudden there was a need to hide it.
Right.
And then we get into the Crusades and we get into Knights Templar and we get into Oak Island and all these other, things of hiding the secret, the Holy Grail, all these other things in history, the changes in different religions, so why would they want to stop doing it that way? Because if we're doing it the way that they did it back then, like in this life now, this life feels more like slave stuff. Whereas back then, it may not have been slave. It might have been just beautiful. They might have wanted to do it. It was part of the culture. They were an advanced civilization, and they were growing.
Doesn't it seem like that? If you look at the megaliths, and if you look at the Native American ruins, even and all the pueblos and all, it looks like it was more of everybody was kind of on the same playing field. You would still have the priest class, the astronomers, the astrologers, right? But for the most part, it was like it seemed like they were always getting together and gathering around in circles, even, right? Like they're gathering around in a tribal fashion and not, hey, look, it's, you've got 5 billionaires over there and they're, and then you've got you got a few middle class and then a bunch of, peons over there that are just scraping by in the mindset of the elite. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Anything's possible, man. Like it's just the why. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Another thing that you've studied have you studied the Saturn conjunction, where Saturn could have been a star, a much larger object, and it was called Shamash in the ancient texts, right? Well, if that's true, if Saturn was a star and it was much larger and it's Shamash and we're under the orbit of Shamash and we don't have that axis or that tilt in our Earth, so we don't have different seasons. We have abundance. People live longer, they're healthier, anything. I mean, it's abundantly there. But something happens, a major cataclysm happens. Saturn or Shamash explodes and it goes nova. It takes Earth out of orbit, and then there's a big meteor that hits Earth and it knocks it off on its axis. A bunch of people die and they're trying to survive, and those at the time that survived, that lived through these cataclysms, some of them could have been the most nefarious, or some of them could have been also the most noble. But it seems like, at least the media presents it as if there's, this those that have eyes to see and understand, people like you, like me, like us that are watching, all of us are watching this right now and talking about this kind of stuff. We can see that there's a faction that does not want to let go. And they're doing whatever they can to hold on to it. They do not want us to evolve. They're hanging on to control. So maybe they lived through this cataclysm because they're willing to do whatever it takes. And because they're sociopath mindset, they don't have the conscience like we do, right? Like they do it. They don't like, how can you judge somebody that doesn't have a conscience? How do you judge them? If they can't judge themselves, I mean, you're kind of wasting a breath. I mean, you can judge them, but they don't even know what they're like, well, they're just do it. It's just like that full reptilian mindset. And I think this story about all the reptiles and, oh, dude, there's reptiles underground. They're I don't know, man. I don't know. If anything, if you look back and even at the ancient texts and stuff, who's to say that there wasn't a species that looked reptoid kind of like these 7,000-year-old Sumerian statues? And even there was a newspaper article, front page LA Times, that came out that said they found an underground reptilian civilization underneath LA that lived through the demiurge or the deluge. I'm sorry, not the demiurge, the deluge. And there's the Raphaim, and there's talks of these reptilian type beings. I don't think they're like all evil. If anything, there were probably a bunch of good ones and then bad ones. And then what happens in a freaking world of survival oftentimes is the worst and the nastiest will end up taking control and taking over, and then they'll spin it. But there's something out there that isn't human that is influencing the world. I can tell you that, man. I mean, there's definitely something out there. It could be just a consciousness or a vibration or a, whatever name you want to put to it. But there's other stuff out there that isn't human.
Because, well, there's the existence of that in antiquity, in the past. So then there's also evidence that it was covered up. And then now there's evidence now that we're starting to realize and recognize the technologies that in this time that existed then. So if those things were there this whole time, where are they during all of this? Because this would mean they're physical. Some of them are physical. Maybe some are ethereal or visiting us mentally and things like that. But there should be some physical placement for them, at least close by. And where do you think that would be?
Okay. So are you asking me where the ruling class of non-human beings are? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, because they have to be somewhere. They exist. Sure. Perfect. Where are they?
That's a fantastic question. And what's interesting is I brought up the same question once to my friend Diamond, which is a total skeptic. And he's the guy that used to see these beings too, that he called them the cockroach people. And he's extremely skeptical about stuff. And I appreciate that about him, because if something's on his mind, he's going to tell you. He has very few filters. Like if he'll tell you what he thinks about you. And that's what I like about him. But I asked him that same question. I was talking about how and there's a place out here called Crestone, Colorado. It's called the Mysterious Valley. And there's all sorts of UFO sightings and weird stuff that happens out there. It's one of the most mysterious places in the world. People see UFOs on a nightly basis out there. Weird stuff like that you just can't even like leprechauns and I mean, like we're talking stuff that just sounds sci-fi, but people see that kind of stuff out there. Anyway, I have speculated, and there's a place out there called the Great Dunes, the Great Sand Dunes.
Okay.
There's these 400-foot sand dunes in the middle of there's these mountains, a valley, and then 400-foot sand dunes. And even Stephen Greer claimed years ago that there was a battle between aliens and military on the other side of these mountains close to Crestone, which is close to these sand dunes. And all this weird activity, and people think there's an underground base underneath these sand dunes. And so I brought up, I'm like, well, maybe there's an advanced race that maybe that's what a lot of these UFO sightings are, is from an advanced race that lived through the Younger Dryas event. They built the civilization underground, and they're living underground, and they got all these advanced technologies. And he said, well, why in the bleep would you, if you're an advanced civilization that has high technologies, why would you need to stay underground? And I was like, that's a great point. Why would you? Unless they've adapted to that environment where the cosmic radiation out here is difficult on their, on their body or something. But there's so many questions about what we're experiencing.
Well, they would have to come and go. Like there has to be a need. So if they're underground, that's where they are. And yet they're controlling us. We should be underground.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you.
So,
Right.
so,
That's what you would
so,
think.
so that's what you would think. Unless we are, we might be in a bubble and they might be outside of this bubble, like we don't know that much either. But I mean, they could be anywhere. They could be in another place on Earth. They could be on the moon. They could be anywhere.
They could be right in front of us.
They could be you, could be me, could be behind me. That's the thing. Or they don't exist. And it's just been us thinking and holding on to a story from that time period, thinking that it's outside of our known world.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. And even if you've had like an experience that is like, you think it's an alien experience, an abduction, maybe it is, but then you have to ask the question, how do you know that they're from another planet? Because we don't have, in the private sector, you and I, we don't have the capabilities to get to another planet yet. So whatever they tell us about other planets, we have to believe. We can observe with the telescope. I've got a nice telescope right here. It's about a $3,000 telescope. I can see stuff on the moon that's just awesome. The craters, the planets. I mean, the rings of Saturn are just beautiful and majestic, and Jupiter and the spot on Jupiter, and then I can even see the canyon on Mars, which is just incredible. I mean, it looks like it takes up a third of the face, man. Can you imagine whatever created that? Well, maybe we saw that, and that's why we describe Mars and Ares as the god of war. I mean, Mars looks like it's gone through war with the gods, with other gods, man, and Venus and so.
And the stories that we're reading, maybe they were on Mars, like you said before. It would make sense if everything in the Bible or any ancient text took place somewhere else. And then they left that somewhere else, came here. And what they did is they wrote down what had happened to explain to the people that were here, us. And then we're taking those stories and we're learning because that's where they came from. But then where did they go afterwards? Are they still here? Are they gone? Are they coming back? There's that Nibiru 12 planet stuff. But it would make sense if it happened on a different planet. Because if they are extraterrestrials, they would have to come from another piece of land, extra land. So it could be inside this planet, land that's not discovered, that we can't find, that we can't see, because we were looking at a map and we were only shown what's on these maps. But unless we can, travel everywhere freely, it's possible that there's other bodies of continents that we don't know about, or they were on another planet and then they came here and they passed that information on. So even if that's all possible, where are they now? That's where they were then. That's where they came from. Now here today, controlling us. Are they controlling us, or are we just in the absence of God, and we just, to our own devices, if you will? And then that can kind of lead to the whole second coming of Christ kind of type talk there, where they're going to come back, and we're gonna kind of find out what the jig was all along, assuming that they came from another planet. Like I'm in a rabbit hole here, kind of spinning around. But I'm just trying to bring all of those possibilities to the table to figure out, or to ask you what logically makes sense to you. Assuming it's all true or possible, what makes sense to you the most?
What makes sense to me the most logically is we have ancestors that came, the Rh negative factor, the Rh negative blood factor, that's from Mars. And there was a major cataclysm that took place on Mars. So they left from Mars. They built camp in Cairo, which is El Cairo, camp of Mars. They built a civilization, a dynasty, and that was the start of much of the more recent civilizations.
Okay.
And now I have a question for you. Now that doesn't mean all of us. That just means like a group, the fallen angels that showed up, the fallen angels that they talk about. I don't think they're fallen angels. I think that they're people that came here and because they had to, because Mars got blown up.
Right.
And
so
Stargate, that movie Stargate.
Yeah.
I think they're showing Mars, dude. I think that's Mars.
Like the planet that they went to?
Yeah, the planet.
I think that was Mars. What was that called? Abydos.
Abydos.
Yeah.
That's
the name of the planet. Yeah. No, that would make sense. Because they go through the pyramid here on Earth to the pyramid on another planet. So there are pyramids on Mars, are there not?
Mm-hmm.
That represent the pyramids in Egypt. So, it would make sense if that was home base to create the same in homage, in the image of, to continue on a new place. But then where did they go after that? Like, are they still here?
Dude, they could go wherever they want, man. They got stargates. Maybe they went back to the Pleiades. Maybe there's planets. That's the thing. I need to get you an interview with Wayne Herschel. Wayne Herschel I had on the other day. He was showing all these star maps, these ancient star maps. And if you look at the Stonehenge, and you can overlap Stonehenge with the Pleiades, and then you can overlap it with Sidonia on Mars. The same thing, dude. The face and these pyramids, they overlap perfect with the stars. And so these star maps, I think, are showing us where we came from.
That would make sense. And those are messages that can only be viewed from above. So how to make them, someone above would have to, map it out. Because you're not going to do that on the ground and be like, I wonder what that's going to look up in space because I can't get up there. But, they have to be told those things. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there was some divine influence. I'm still trying to figure out just where they are. Like, I'm not like, there's a lot of people out there that are focusing on the when, the how, maybe the why or the what. I'm trying to figure out the who and the where.
Okay. Well, that's okay. So I think some of them literally have gone back to the Pleiades, or obviously you say the Pleiades, that's a huge chunk of space. I mean, but I think that there's planets, obviously their home that they have gone back to. And that's because of all these star maps. But what's interesting is you look at these civilizations, like some of the Mayans and I think Aztecs, and civilizations that just kind of disappeared. And yes, you can attribute the majority of that to war and famine and weather and such. However, I have wondered, have there been times in past when they've opened up certain stargates and entire tribes have walked into these stargates to go into different worlds and different realms, completely different parts of the galaxy? I believe that. I think I'm going to say 55 to 60% yes. That's my confidence level.
I heard one of those conspiracies that the war in Iraq was to secretly recover a Stargate of some sort on a ziggurat near, Samaria.
Man,
there's lots of things, man.
Let's just say that some of that stuff you read about conspiracies, there's people that might or might not have been there that have, maybe. Can you imagine? I mean, think about that. Stargate. What are you going to do with the Stargate? Well, that opens up a bit. That opens up some real estate. Now you don't have to worry about rockets.
Nope. You can go to Mars. You can go. That's how it all happens. It makes sense if the technology is there. So then you come back into Hollywood, who made this show. It was a movie, and then it became a 10 season series, and then spawned off to Stargate Atlantis and then Stargate Universe. I watched them all, but it was this huge thing. And then you get into Stargate Atlantis having the whole concept of Atlantis not being on this planet in another galaxy, but it still makes sense. And then you got the Wraith who figure out, there's a planet, full of life. We're going to come over and we're going to do that. So this quest for finding these people, what if, that's a good lesson too, is when they found and heard about humans, it turns out that, we were on the food chain for them. Right. So there's danger into pushing this. So I think with the combination of things, that's where you get the good and the bad. You get the angels and the demons, the same entities. Some protect us and some don't. I mean, and just like in humanity, with some of us do good, some of us do bad, and we have to coincide and we have to coexist. So we can do that amongst ourselves, but in these high-ranking positions that we don't get to see, the ones that are controlling us, are they the good ones or are they the bad ones? Because whatever they're controlling, they must need us for something. Otherwise, we'd all be gone.
Let me ask
Right?
you, Ryan. Do you think if the good ones were, do you think the good ones would even want to control us? And
No.
I think that's, I mean, that right there, ask yourself that question. I think the good ones, if you
are the messengers. The good ones are the ones that are sending the messages, perhaps.
Well, and yeah, and you know what's interesting is there's clearly, if the good ones wanted, okay, if we were being controlled or led by good ones, I'm thinking to myself, we would have technologies that were far beyond what we know about, because it would benefit not only us, but it would benefit the planet, which is, you know, she's alive, man. She takes care of us every day, and we got to take care of her. And maybe that's a part of this whole experiment with us being here is like, maybe we're here to help her in the future from an asteroid. Maybe we could build a technology that could divert an asteroid that would destroy Mother Nature.
Right.
So how can we help the Earth? How can we help everybody without giving up our sovereignty? Because I think that's really important. I mean, one of the things that made America so amazing so quick was the Bill of Rights and, you know, the Constitution. I'm sure there's, you know, I mean, people could probably refine it, but I think it's been adapted so much, though. I mean, liberty, justice for all. Hello. Freedom. Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's pretty cool. Is that cliche? I don't know, but America became pretty awesome in a pretty short amount of time because we had the ingenuity and creativity. But you know what, man? If we give that up, if we give up our independence, then are we giving up our essence? I mean, are we giving up our divine ability to make a change? Or are we just fitting in?
Well, what about the notion that America was, you know, founded by a Freemason? So was Canada was founded by a Freemason? You know, like any of those. So, like, I mean, where does the Illuminati fit in to all of this other stuff? Are they the controllers? Are they bad? Are they human? Are they
which
reptilian?
Illuminati? You know.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's talk about the Freemasonry for a minute. I'll give you my perspective because I was adopted by my dad, and my family's awesome. Always, you know, great, beautiful family, super awesome things to say about all my family. I didn't meet my biological father until I was 15, and I always had a close relationship with my biological grandma. And so I asked her when I was in my late 20s, or no, I was in my 30s when I asked her. I said, because I just had this feeling, I just knew somehow. And I said, do we have family that's Freemasons? And she's like, well, yes, we do. And she started pulling out all this paperwork and showing me these old magazines. And my family on my father's side, they fought for the South. When they lost the war, they got invited to go to Brazil, and they were given free land. So they moved to Brazil. They were given land, and they were, you know, given a quality life. And, you know, I saw a bunch of photos and this big newspaper article that was put together about them. And, you know, they were on this, you could see all the Freemason symbols around the baseball. What was it called? What am I looking for here? Court, baseball or basketball court. I'm sorry, basketball court, basketball courts. And they had a lot of the Confederate flags and stuff like that as well. And they weren't racist at all, man. So this whole thing about, oh, they fought for the South, are they racist? No, not at all. Quite the opposite, actually. Because if you go to Brazil, Brazil's filled with people of color and all sorts of different people. So not at all. They fought for the South. They lost. They went to Brazil. And I saw a bunch of, you know, bunch of stuff, the Freemason symbols and the Confederate stuff. So, and then I asked her, I said, and do we have family that's, do we have Native relatives. And the funny thing is, like, if you look at me, I'm about as white as it gets, right? I mean, even, you know, my friends that are white are like, dude, you're really white. And I'm like, I know, sorry. I'll be a little bit more hip, bro. But anyway, so, you know, they would just give me a hard time about it because I'd wear my socks, my white socks up. I used to do that. And they're like, no, put your socks down. I'm like, oh, okay. Put it down. I get it. You know, just cheesy stuff. But anyway, so yeah. And I asked her, I said, do we have native connections? And she told me about my great grandma. And she was a medicine woman. She was native. And she met my great grandpa. And he had pneumonia. The doctors, the Western doctors, were giving him like a day to live. They're like, you know, saying he wasn't going to make it. Well, she met him, my great grandma, and she's a medicine woman. She goes in the cabinets, makes up some tea or something for him. He drinks it. The next day, he's like walking around, feeling better, and they obviously met and fell in love, and here I am now, several generations later. But nobody ever told me any of this. I just knew it. And I asked her about it, and she told me all this kind of stuff. And my family, not all my family, but a lot of my family's LDS. So they keep track of, genealogy. Like they're, big time. That's a big thing for the Mormon religion, is keeping track of the genealogy. Like they even got vaults in the mountains out there tucked away where they've got genealogy stuff. And I had a family that helped develop genealogy software for the Mormon church. So to not know that, but to know it, like nobody tells me, but I know this kind of stuff. And I asked her about it, and she's like, oh yeah, check this out. I thought that was really cool because it was like my ancestors were talking to me. And now I've made these just beautiful relationships with, I've got a great friend that's a Zuni elder. I made friends with a Hopi elder. I've got a really great friend that's Navajo. And I'm meeting these really cool people from different parts of the world that are sharing their information. And it's like all this is coming together for a reason. I feel like like all the jobs I've had, right? I've had literally about 100 jobs before I started doing this. I think all of that information I've taken to this point, and people are just, man, I love seeing people really wake up. When I see their eyes light up, and I see that's one of the things that I really love, man. I really love that. And when you see the world, so we go into the age of Aquarius, this age of technology and health and happiness and freedom of speech and freedom of belief, all this stuff. That's the age of Aquarius. And it's supposed to be really fast. It's the age of air, and it's an air sign. So now, right when that happens, what happens around the world? First, it's Floyd. What's his name? George Floyd, and the cop that had the knee on his neck, and he's like, I can't breathe. They push that all over the media. People saying they can't breathe. And then what happens after that? The mask mandates and all this kind of stuff, and separation of people. And so I'm not taking away from the pandemic aspect of it. I'm asking and I'm questioning, is this also, are there things and beings and entities, like you asked, where did they go? Well, they could be right here in front of us, orchestrating all this kind of stuff. And they're just, I mean, you have a quantum computer that's so intelligent, can calculate a quadrillion floating, can calculate what's going to happen in the future. It could put a quarter on the sidewalk and go, and then it would know that that's going to link to a car accident 30 seconds later, because somebody's going to trip on the, they're going to look at the quarter, and
all these things are possible. All these things are happening. My question to you for that is why? Why are they doing it that way? What is the end game? What is your opinion on that?
Control, the internet of all things, tracking of everything simultaneously, 24/7, predictive measures as